Back again with the Too Tall Sports podcast. Thank you for joining me today. Happy to have you in. My guest is Sam Levitt. He's a college basketball announcer for various networks, including ESPN and Big Ten Network. He's also the play-by-play man for the Amarillo Sod Poodles, which is the AA minor league baseball affiliate of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I used to play for the Diamondbacks, obviously, but it was in Mobile. So now the Diamondbacks AA is in Amarillo, and he's the play-by-play man. So happy to have Sam Levitt on. We talk all about his career as a broadcaster and what it's really like behind the scenes. And they have the same life as we do. So as minor leaguers, they're on the buses too. So really cool story from Sam Levitt today. You can follow him at Sammy Lev on social media. You can always follow me and follow the show at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter at Too Tall Sports. You can follow us on YouTube. Please subscribe and hit the bell notification if you want to get notified for every episode that we drop, and it's normally on Thursdays. You can also follow us on Apple Podcasts. You can listen there for the audio side. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you can. Scroll all the way down on the episodes page, hit the 5 stars. It'll help with exposure for the show. We really appreciate that. So if you can, stop, take a minute, hit the 5-star, and hopefully we can get on that new and noteworthy within Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spotify. If you want to listen there, just follow along. Also, we're on Google Podcasts. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Pandora. Pretty much everywhere you listen to your podcast, we're there. So please check us out, subscribe, rate, and review. Drop a comment. Love to hear your feedback. So once again, this is the Too Tall Sports Podcast, and my guest is Sam Levitt. I'll see you on the other side. Too tall, Going crazy. All right, welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is a TV and radio broadcaster and play-by-play man for multiple teams in the world of sports. He's the voice of the AA affiliate of the now Arizona Diamondbacks, the Amarillo Sod Poodles, and he also does play-by-play for a number of college basketball teams for various networks such as ESPN and Big Ten Network, and he's a graduate of Northwestern. He is Sam Levitt. What's up, Sam? Thanks for being on the show.
What's going on, Brett? Thanks so much for having me. I get it.
Yeah, man, definitely. Glad to have you on. My first college basketball announcer, so I'm excited to talk to you about that. Not only baseball, but also basketball too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've enjoyed seeing the clips on TikTok, Instagram, and all that, so I'm happy to be on.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. I kind of wanted to start, before we get into your background, just with the last 12 months or so, what it's been like, being a broadcaster during a pandemic, like just the scheduling and having to maybe broadcast from off-site. Like, what's it been like over the last 12 months for you?
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting. Obviously, I got down to Texas for the minor league baseball season in March, and down there for a season that eventually wouldn't happen, which was and having to navigate all that and figure out some different things regarding that, and then the Texas Collegiate League season we had down there, and then getting back here to Chicago and navigating this unusual college basketball landscape just on a day-to-day basis with games you're doing, but on an overall basis with your schedule and with all the different things that have gone on in the last 12 months. So it's been interesting, not fun in a lot of ways, having to navigate all these different things, navigate some of the aspects of figuring out what this business and what the day-to-day and week-to-week and month-to-month is going to look like. But I'm optimistic that once we get towards the spring and summer, hopefully we're getting back to some level of normalcy. And but I would be lying if I said it's been easy. It's been a difficult year to navigate this business and navigate the sports world in general.
So last summer, when there was no minor league baseball, were you working other sports, or how did you fill your gaps there?
Yeah, so with no minor league baseball, I was lucky because my team, the Amarillo Sod Poodles, now the AA team and the Diamondbacks, allowed me to stay in Amarillo and stay on the payroll in some capacity. And we did a number of different streaming shows covering our 2019 season and all different kinds of things, which was great because it gave me something to do. It gave
Right.
us content. So that was cool. Then we had this small collegiate league season in late June to early August. That was also great because I got to call the games online, and we did pretty much our full TV broadcast, which was great. And quite frankly, Brett, it gave me something to do, more than anything. And baseball to call super great at that. So, the summertime was and the springtime was weird because, I'm down there literally March 9th. I got to Amarillo, and you're getting ready for an 140 game season and everything to be normal. And I just come from spring training, and it just doesn't happen. And then
Yeah.
I think for all of us, it was kind of a shock to the system to figure out what the spring and what the summer were going to look like. And thankfully, I had the ability to stay on with the team and do at least some level of baseball with the Texas Collegiate League that we were hosting, along with some other minor league teams, and we figured it out. But like I said originally, definitely a shock and a tough thing to navigate even during that spring and summer.
Right. No, I totally understand that. Well, hopefully this summer is going to be a lot better. I think it will be. I wanted to kind of go back to your upbringing. I saw that you're from New York. You're a huge Mets fan, and I think I saw your favorite teams were those late '90s, early 2000s Mets, and Mike Piazza was your favorite player. So, what do you remember about growing up rooting for those Mets teams?
Yeah, I grew up a big Mets fan. I was the Mets fan kid in high school. And keep in mind, I was growing up in the late '90s, early 2000s, and I mean those were Yankees years, right? I mean, prime Derek Jeter time. The 2000 World Series. But
Right.
my dad was a huge Met fan. My parents were season ticket holders back in 1986, and that's where I grew up. And I grew up about 15 minutes away from Shea, and I grew up with the Mike Piazza led black jersey 90s, early 2000s Mets. And, as I got older, as I got to middle school, as I got to high school, it just took off. And I was going to Shea Stadium by myself by the time high school rolled around, and would hop on the Long Island Railroad and take it to Woodside, and then hop on the 7 train or take the railroad to Shea. And, that's those teams are what sparked my love for the game. And was a huge, and still am, a huge, huge, huge Mets fan. Live and die with them. And it's interesting to think about now, working in it, and think about those memories and the way my relationship to the game started. But you're right. Those late night teams that made the postseason, the one that made the World Series in 2000, those were everything to me. And yes, my favorite player was most definitely, like many young Mets fans at the time, Mike Piazza.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. That was an exciting time. Like you mentioned, the Subway Series. That was a fun, that was a cool experience. Probably even more so for you being in it. But even from afar, like that, I liked seeing the Yankees. The big corporate, money team versus the little guy or whatever. And it's cool that you
Right.
guys were able to do that.
Yeah, it is. And those teams, I think for a lot of Mets fans, have a really special place in a lot of people's hearts because they had not been good for a long time. I mean, since 1986, 1988, they made the postseason, and then they were bad in 90s and really until 1998 when they make the Piazza trade, were not relevant. And
Right.
then those late 90s teams were really good. The thing with the Mets is like the good times have come, few and far between.
The
When
Mets
you
are
really
gonna
think
Met.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I learned with the Mets early on was that you have to enjoy the good times when they're here because you don't know when you're gonna be back. You just don't know. Perfect example. Most recently, they make the World Series in 2015. 2016, they get to the wild card game, and 17,
Yeah.
18, 19, all the pitching they haven't touched the postseason, right? So so I've learned over time, you've got to, and I think this is true for all sports, especially baseball. You have to enjoy it when you're there and take advantage of the opportunity when you've got a chance to win a World Series because there is no guarantee that you'll be back anytime soon.
Yeah. Totally agree. And I think now, I mean, hey, hopefully this Mets team has a chance now. A new ownership. They got a bunch of
Yeah.
free agent signings. So hopefully it'll be better this year. I wanted to. So even in high school, I saw that you were trying to become an EMT, and really sports wasn't really in the question. Did you think at that point to go to college that was going to be your future? Was in the medical field for sure? Nothing else? You were dead set on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, I've told this story a few times in some different podcasts and interviews, but you're right. I was the youngest EMT in New York State. On my 18th birthday, I took the exam and I volunteered with an ambulance company on Long Island and eventually worked where the Mets played at Citi Field and was on the medical staff there for a season. And it was my thing in high school. And, I rode the ambulances and went on calls. And then when I turned 18, officially became an EMT. And, it was a huge part of my college applications. And I would say when I got to Northwestern, you know, was I 100% sure that I wanted to be a doctor? No, but I mean, I was thinking about it. I mean, I took chemistry my entire freshman year.
Yeah.
But I realized at some point during that freshman year and after having the experiences as an EMT and working at Citi Field and some of the internships I had done, I think I realized it wasn't something I wanted to do. It wasn't something I was super passionate about, which I think, being a doctor is a wonderful thing. But, to go to med school and go do it, just like anything, you have to have passion for it. You have to know you want to do it.
Yeah.
And, so it's an interesting question because I feel like midway through my freshman year, I kind of knew in my head that I didn't want to go to med school and I wasn't truly interested in it. But, in high school, certainly my senior year going to college, it was something that was very top of mind. And I wouldn't trade the EMT experience and everything I took from that at all. I mean, that's a wonderful experience. Quite honestly, put me in a great position when it came to applying to colleges and things like that. So I wouldn't trade that experience at all. And I still think about those days and the opportunity to work at Citi Field. And I mean, it was like, a dream for me because it wasn't just that I was working, but I got to go to games for free. And
Right.
when you weren't, attending to somebody, that got hit by a foul ball and there were serious medical issues and it was a serious job. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But when you weren't, attending to something, you were watching the game. So
Yeah.
there were games where there wasn't a whole lot going on the job front, which is good because you want people to be safe and healthy.
Right.
And you just stood there and watched the game. So from that perspective, those nights were always memorable.
So what was it about Northwestern that kind of drew you there? Because obviously they have a great broadcast journalism school. A ton of the people at ESPN and other networks came from Northwestern. So what was it about Northwestern before you got into radio and broadcasting that drew you to that school?
Yeah, number one, obviously, it's a great school academically, and that was something that was important to me. It was important to my parents, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to have, quite honestly, the grades and the extracurricular activities from the application standpoint to get in.
Right.
So when you have an opportunity to go to a place like Northwestern, no matter what you want to do, you take it and you go for it. And I was super, super, super lucky to be able to do that. It's funny. At the time, obviously, it was a great school. I was looking at a lot of smaller, more liberal arts type schools in the Northeast. Like my parents went to Vassar, Colgate,
Okay.
Wesley, schools like that, which, I think about it now and that would have given me a totally different experience. Who knows if I end up doing what I do now, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I would have done there as far as broadcasting and sports. It would have been a small little D3 school with none of that. So what ended up happening, Northwestern was one of the final schools we visited. It was small, only 8,000 undergrad, but had a bigger university feel, had the Big Ten sports, which I liked. I had gone to the University of Michigan to visit, and that felt a little bit too big. So this kind of felt perfect. And, basically I was talking about it with my parents one night and I remember, they kind of said to me, well, if you got into all of these, which would you go to?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I think I'd go to Northwestern. So they were like, well, why wouldn't you then just apply early to Northwestern? And I was like, you give yourself a better chance to get in. And I said, okay, so let's do it. And I applied early, got in, and went. So it was it was kind of the bigger school feel to still a very good academically smaller type school.
Yeah.
Um, but the sports thing, say, I think a lot of people, because of the reputation Northwestern and Medill has for journalism, a lot of people assume that that's why I went, and it really isn't. Like, I was in the College of Arts and Sciences, and it just happened to fall into place like that. I was very lucky that I ended up there. And no doubt being there and having the opportunities to do certain things propelled me towards where I eventually went. Again, if I had gone to, Colgate, I loved Colgate, okay, in Hamilton, New York, this
Yeah.
small little school, okay, beautiful. And I mean, I was, for a while, I was like, I want to go to Colgate. This place seems great, but it's tiny. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
2,000, 3,000 kids. Had I gone to Colgate, I mean, I don't know that I ever get into this really. How would I? I mean, it just
Yeah.
would have been a totally different than going to a Big Ten school with the broadcast opportunities that Northwestern has. But I know that's kind of a rambling answer to the original question. The academics, the athletics, the fact that it was in Chicago, the campus was beautiful. It felt like, out of all the places I loved, a place that was dense and was the going to be the fullest experience in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I want to ask you, so you get in with the school radio and all that stuff, and you go from pre-med to broadcasting. What was that transition like for you, and how did it all come together? And then you were all in, and you're going to pursue this after that.
Yeah, well, the broadcasting side of it, started for me at our student radio station, WNUR. And I joined there. I mean, the story really is that I tried out for the club baseball team. Keep in mind, I was not a great high school baseball player. I was at best an average high school baseball player, but
Uh-huh.
I tried out for the club team when I got to Northwestern, didn't make it. And my next thing was going to the student radio station. And I went. The good thing about Northwestern is that they put you on, and WNUR was that they put you on air right away, doing sports up on the daily newscasts and things like that. And they let you do this Sunday night sports talk show called The Sports Voice. And I did that a couple of times my freshman year. And the first time I did it with a guy named John Rosenberg, who was a year older than me at Northwestern. And every time I tell this story, I feel like I have to shout out John just in case he
There you go.
listens, which he's not, but it's fine. He's a funny guy. So, and we still talk. So John Rosenberg. And I remember having that buzzed feeling coming out of the show, like doing the show and coming out feeling different, feeling, wow, that feeling like, that felt right. That was exciting. Like, people talk about being in the zone. People talk about really loving what they do, right? And I had that feeling about it, that buzzed feeling that I think a lot of people that work on air and work in broadcasting know, because there's an adrenaline rush to it, and there's a love to it, and I still get that, every night, which is great, which should be my answer still to this day.
Yeah.
So, I did that, and through my work at WNUR and later on V Station and some Big Ten Network student and stuff at Northwestern, it became pretty clear in that freshman year that it was something I really enjoyed, that I was super interested in. I interned at Mount Sinai in New York City after my freshman year. Great experience. Through that too, I just, through that whole year, I kind of got a picture in my head of the broadcast side is really what I wanted to do, and doing anything else like trying to be pre-med was not.
Yeah.
And the other thing to it too was, while I was taking chemistry during my freshman year, I was also taking the intro journalism classes at night. And I had this great professor, Clarence Waldron, who I still keep in touch with today, and actually lives not too far from me in Chicago here. And he was a big influence on me. Was a great professor, and knew my situation of what I was considering, and I was rare kids in that freshman year class, in these very big intro to journalism classes at Northwestern that are supposed to be very grueling and very hard. I was one of the few people, if not the only one, who wasn't actually in Medill, the School of Journalism. So, to me, I walk in there after a day of chemistry, and everybody would be like, "Oh, these classes are so hard." They burnt out by these journalism classes, and I'm walking in, doing this work. I'm like, this is the easiest part of my day. I got chemistry for 3 hours,
right.
earlier today. And to me, that was hard.
Yeah.
So, but it was just an interesting dynamic that freshman year, because I was kind of living this double life during the day, and then I would go to the journalism classes at night. But, when I decided to transfer into Medill, it was easy because, and it had occasion for not being easy to do that, at least when I was there, because
Yeah.
Medill was so competitive to get into when you're just applying from high school. But for me, it was never really a question, because I had taken those classes. So when I went to go transfer, they knew me. And and I think they respected me in a certain way, because I had already, I had done what everybody else had done. And so I wasn't behind. I wasn't, I was right on track. So it was a mix of the experience and the classes, and hating chemistry and not really enjoying my internship that summer. And when I got back my more year, I decided to go for it, switch into Medill. And that's really when it went from, 0 to 100, when it was full force, and I was all focused on journalism and broadcasting, and how I was going to be the best I could be at that.
Right. You go from that, you graduate Northwestern, and then your first gig as a young broadcaster is with an independent ball team in the Frontier League called the Gateway Grizzlies. What was that experience like? I mean, you're truly, as far as baseball goes, that's basically the bottom of starting to make your way up. So what was that like for you in your first couple of years?
My job with the Grizzlies was great. So I got there in 2014. I was the number 2 broadcaster. A guy by the name of Adam Young hired me, and it was my first foray into not just pro ball, but my first job out of college. I mean, I literally graduated early from Northwestern in March of 2014. Spent a month or so there, just kind of hanging out, and then early May went down to St. Louis and started. I missed my entire spring quarter almost, all the fun parties of senior year, and went back in June for graduation. So that was kind of weird to begin with, to like leave school while everybody was still there, and like it's your senior year and things are ending. And but it was what it was. I wanted to go down and start, and baseball season, it's April, May start time, and you got to go. So, my job down there was great. I was very lucky not just to be down there in 2014, but also when Adam left late in 2014, I took over and I stayed for 15 and 16. I never thought when I went down there that I would be there for 3 seasons, but often that's the way it works in baseball, and really any job you take out of college. It was great. It's a great organization. It is one of the best independent league organizations, in America. The ballpark was great. The management was great. My coworkers were great. And again, it just gave me that next step beyond the Cape Cod League of learning how to do it at a different level, learning how to do it at a professional level, learning some of the I'm looking for the right word, the expectations of doing it at that kind of level. And the cool thing about the Grizzlies was that, not only are you doing pro baseball, but you're living in St. Louis, and it's in that market. So you're on air in St. Louis. And that's a very unique thing, to be with a minor league team, but also be in a real city. By the way, I say, I don't want to insult any of the small cities I've lived in. When I say real city, I mean a bigger
baseball market.
Yes, certainly. I mean, the stadium where the Grizzlies play is 10 minutes from Busch Stadium.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, that's by that. But again, just that next step of learning how to do it level. Pro ball and certainly indie ball, there are big differences, I think, between indie ball and affiliated ball, but there are certain advantages to working in indie ball as well, as far as the freedom you get to do certain things, and the certain kinds of relationships you can make with managers, coaches, and players, and things like that. Just because it's not under this umbrella of a major league organization. So
Yeah.
it's indie ball is an interesting thing, a very unique thing, and was really a lot of fun. And for me, as far as professional development, was was super valuable.
Well, speaking of fun, I saw you got to have a little more fun than you probably ever thought you would broadcasting. You had one funny broadcasting game. You got to do it, I believe, from a hot tub,
Mhm.
possibly. Is that kind of how it went?
Yeah, we in with the Grizzlies, they had a hot tub in right field. And by the way, I was not the first broadcaster for the Grizzlies to do a game in the hot tub. Joe Pott, who had been there for a long time and now actually does stuff for KMOX in St. Louis, he had done it back in the day. So I don't want to
Okay.
make it like it was my grand idea. I believe Joe had done it before, but we hadn't done it in a while. In my third year with the Grizzlies in 2016, like I was trying to do everything I could to spice it up and be funny and have fun, and that's always kind of been my brand in broadcasting, especially in the baseball world. That whether it's from a content perspective or just being goofy, like I like to think outside the box, right? In a very long season, how can you spice it up?
Yeah.
And, I was like, we got to go do a game out there. So we went, me and my partner, Matt, and we had a little help, because usually I run the board and, coordinate everything. And this was a lot different because you're sitting in a hot tub. My hands are wet. We just have the headsets on and all the equipment is behind us. And somebody I worked with, Abby, she helped us out and ran the board and made sure I had to kind of give her the tutorial on how to do things.
Sure.
That was fun. And we've done a few things like that over the years in different teams I've been with, whether it's in Amarillo now, calling a game from field level instead of up in the booth, eating burgers on air or
There
donut
you go.
burgers or whatever it is like. But that was fun, the hot tub game. And we had a home run ball that hit the tent that we had above us. And there's somewhere I still have the audio of that. And that was I'm happy you brought that up. That was a lot of fun.
No, when I saw that, I was like, "There's no way they were able to pull that off." But it sounds like you guys did, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
As far as the next move you make is kind of a big jump as far as minor league baseball goes, just like a player would make. You go from the Frontier League to now you're in Double A in the Texas League in Corpus Christi. What was that transition like for you? And then what was the difference between announcing an independent ball and then doing play-by-play in Double A?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, look, I have nothing but respect for independent baseball, right? I spent 3 seasons in it. I made terrific friends there, but I will be the first one to say that I do think there is a big difference between indie ball and affiliated ball. And, there are people that have worked in independent baseball for a long time that might disagree with that. Look, I think from the organizational perspective, it's very, very similar, right? The goal is to create a family-friendly, fun experience that's affordable and provide a brand of entertainment. And whether I'm
Yeah.
at the Gateway Grizzlies or I'm at the Christie Hooks or I'm at the Tulsa Drillers or wherever, that idea, any minor league team in the country from the organizational side, it's really the same. So from that perspective, very similar. Where I find the biggest difference is from the baseball side, 100%. And it is because with the Gateway Grizzlies, your manager is the GM, is the everything. I mean, they control the entire baseball side of the operation, which, like that, has certain advantages as a broadcaster, because everything, it's just a different setup, and you can get to know the staff and the play in ways that you just can't in affiliated ball.
Right.
It's just different. So, because the baseball side is so different, and it adds a different element when you talk about the day-to-day trades and releases and signings and things like that. Look, with the football, by the time you get to Double A, it's just totally different. You're dealing with not just players that are a part of a much organization, with a 3 overall pick who just got signed to an $8 million signing bonus, or an international prospect who has a $20 million signing bonus and is the number 7 prospect in America. And those two things, going players in indie ball, and I have nothing but respect for, but players in indie ball who are just hoping to get a chance to get back into affiliated ball,
Yeah.
and then covering players that's that are ranked as the number 5 prospect in the entire country.
Yeah.
Um, that's so from that perspective, I've thought that's a big difference is the baseball side. But as far as the organizational side, the front office, the selling of tickets, the sponsorships, the promotions, the dizzy bat race, like one of my best friends in this, Mike Coffin, who's the broadcaster in Corpus Christi, he has a great line, and he says, "Our job revolves around a dizzy bat race." And he's right. That's what it all revolves around, that dizzy bat race in the middle of the 5th inning with the 2 guys spinning around on the bats and then like wobbling towards the finish line. It really is true. Like that's what it's all about,
Right.
like minor league baseball.
Yeah.
So, from indie ball to AAA, I don't think that changes from the front office side, but the baseball side, yeah, I think it's totally, totally different because you're dealing with a totally different organization, group of players, and and a system, which in indie ball you're just not. So covering it day to day, I find it very, very different.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, so switching to college basketball for a little bit, then we'll get back to Amarillo a little bit later.
Yeah.
How do you manage doing play-by-play for multiple sports? And like, is there differences to it? Obviously, basketball is a lot more fast-paced. How do you kind of prepare differently for those two sports?
It's totally different. I mean, baseball, not only is it every day, but you're also covering the same team every day. So it's not that you don't prepare. I mean, I do a ton of prep every day for baseball, but it's really different. You're doing 6 months of the same team and same players and same pitchers every 5th day and same bullpen guys. And there are just going to be things out of the head that I never have to look down
Right.
and see. Often when I do college basketball, I might be doing 2 teams that I've never seen before. And same thing with ball or soccer or whatever on the college side. Um, that's really different. It takes a much different kind of prep. Like the game I did yesterday, I did Loyola and Valparaiso women's basketball. Now, thankfully, earlier this season, I've seen both those teams in different games. So that makes it easier. But, keep in mind, I haven't seen Valpo in more than a month. So I have to go back and, you know, re-familiarize myself with all their players and what they've done the last month and update my charts and the storylines to go listen to what the coaches have said. And it's just a very, very different process. And I feel like it's not that you can't get as in depth to it, but your relationship to it is quite different. There is just, again, there is nothing like baseball where you're covering a team every day. You will never have that level of comfort, that level of prep with the other stuff, no matter what you do, and
Yeah.
I consider myself very, very well prepped for any game I do. The game I did last night, I mean, I could show you. I have it on TikTok. I have, my spotting boards and all kinds of stuff. Okay. I'm well prepared, but you're never going to have, there's just the level of comfort and understanding you have of the team and their story of the season and history and things like that as you do when you cover a baseball team day after day, and for me sometimes year after year. So that's the biggest difference is it's you're with the basketball stuff, you're prepping for that game, and it's almost more of a cram of trying to look very narrowly at each player and their stats and their story, but also have an understanding of the program and the game and what it means. And also as the game goes on, you're trying to weave all that information in and out of the game and what's happening in the game. And sometimes you can get too caught up in whatever is on those boards and you can kind of forget about what's actually happening in the game, because by the time the second half rolls around, it may not matter what the point guard did, last weekend.
Right.
So if she had 2 points last weekend, but tonight she's got 14 in the first half and she's 3 away from her career high, well, that's the story now. So it's I know, again, rambling answer, but
That's okay.
that's the biggest difference
Sure.
is the prep and how you kind of approach the game, both very narrowly and very kind of big picture as well.
Yeah, and when following you on social media, you are great about giving us the behind the scenes of what your days are like, and getting the pronunciations right of the players and how that all
Hmm.
works. But also a funny one you had recently was about how people kind of doubted. You have, of course, trolls on social media, gotta love them. That there's like you have a cough button, you have a talk to the producer button. All these things are happening in real time. So how does that all work? Is there someone in your ear like a lot of the time? Like, what is
Hmm.
that like mid game when you have to pay attention to so much stuff in front of you?
Yeah. So let me preface this by saying that that some of the TikToks are a joke. So the cough button really exists. I don't want to ruin it. So I'm
Sure.
actually I regret actually bringing it up now.
Oh,
Some is real, some is not. I'm going to leave
okay.
it at that,
Okay.
okay? Because I've got more coming and I can't ruin the whole
Gotcha.
bit.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, but let's actually talk what really happened.
Sure.
So, yes, my baseball season and everything else is quite different. So, during this time of year, like the game I did last night, I'm working with a producer who has an entire crew that's putting on the broadcast, and really myself and my partner, we are very, very small parts of the game in the broadcast. When you really want to be honest about it and think about it, my job really is to just, I like to call it driving the bus. Okay. We've got a bus on a route that needs to get from one stop to the other to its final destination. Right. And my job is to drive that bus, get it from one stop to another, make sure it gets there smoothly and gets to the final destination, which is getting through the game, right? And maybe that's not a great metaphor or analogy or whatever, but you're maybe the best actually. You're just conducting the orchestra, like you're bringing the analyst in and out. You're making sure that you're referring to whatever's on the screen and the replays. You are just navigating through this game for viewer, right? Not the star game at all. We are in the background. The stars are the players and what's happening during the game. So whatever analogy you want to use,
Sure.
right? Um, so for basketball, we're working with cameras and producers and replay and graphics. And while the game is going on, I have all those things in my headset. I have, well, not everybody, but the producer is in my
Yeah.
headset. So, what is the producer's main job? Every broadcast, every producer is different. When I've done stuff at work level, that's quite different than when I do it for a school run ESPN broadcast. Then I do work with a video production crew that does a great job in Amarillo putting on our MILB TV broadcasts and things like that. Especially on the radio side, whether we're home or away, it's me. I am the play producer, engineer, technical support. I do have an analyst with me at home, but on the road, I'm solo. I'm everything. So, and by the way, the setup is a lot more simple than what we do this time of year with some of the ESPN Plus stuff. But that's really different because it's all me. And when I'm on the road, I mean, it's not the most complicated setup in the world, but I set up the equipment. I make sure everything sounds good. If something's broken, I fix it. I have to go figure out how we're gonna get through it. Uh, Time of year is actually quite different, but enjoyable. In all in one. And I shouldn't say that it's all me because again, I do work with that production crew on the TV side at home during baseball, but it's yeah, there's no producer in my ear. It is very much the Sam Levitt show. And I kind of and I kind of do whatever I want and roll however I want. And but obviously we do the best job we possibly can.
And one of the teams you get to cover, which is pretty cool on the men's side, is Loyola-Chicago, the Ramblers. And
Hmm.
they had that famous run to the Final Four in 2018. And Sister Jean, the older lady that's the hype machine for them. Have you, first of all, I think you've said before you've met her, but what's it been like announcing for doing play-by-play for Loyola-Chicago?
Yeah, it's been cool. So on the basketball side, I've done a couple of games. I do pregame and halftime for the radio, so I cover them very actively, and I'm around the program a lot. Um, they are a great program. Porter Moser has done an outstanding job there. I've seen people on Twitter lately say that they think Porter Moser is building the Gonzaga of the Midwest at Loyola, which I think is obviously a big thing. I don't know that anybody verified has said it, but I've seen fans saying that. Look, I think that's obviously a very, very high bar, right? He's doing an outstanding job. The program is really, really good. Why is that? Well, the Final Four run is one thing, but let's talk more than that, because the Final Four run, that team is very talented. They won their tournament. To go to the Final Four in March, you've got to be a damn good team. But you can make the argument that this team in 2020, 2021 is even more talented and deep than that team was. Now, are they the same fate of going to the Final Four? We're going to see. That's hard to do. But you look the culture they've created, what Porter Moser brings. Just you watch them on the bench. I've seen them practice a couple of times this year. In fact, yesterday I was getting ready for this game. They were practicing. They just have that look and that feel of a really together, hard-nosed, confident program, and they're playing that way. Look at what they've done since going to the Final Four. They are right in that Missouri Valley race. They could win the conference this year. They should be going to the NCAA tournament, regardless of if they win their conference or not. It's a very, very impressive program. So again, the comparison to the Midwest Gonzaga, they are a long way away from that, but you can see why people are really excited about what's being built there because of that depth and talent pipeline. And that, that's the signature of a really good program, no matter if you're in a Power 5 conference or in a really good major, mid-major like the Missouri Valley.
Now you're in Amarillo, and what's it been like? Now you were in Corpus Christi, but now you're in Amarillo. So what do you think the biggest difference between, even though it's the same league, just those two cities and stadiums in general?
The biggest thing when I went to Amarillo was a brand new team. It was a brand new stadium. It was a brand new organization. It was a community and an area not had affiliated professional baseball in almost 40 years. When I was in Corpus Christi, when I left St. Louis and I went to Corpus, that team had been there for over a decade. Everything was very set. Terrific team. I had a wonderful 2 years in Corpus Christi, but I walked into a place where they were rolling. They knew what they were doing, and everything I did on air, from the radio side to the TV pregame show side to the content side, they had a great staff, and I walked into a great situation that was set up for me. Amarillo is very, very, very different in that experience. In walking to a stadium under construction and a broadcast booth under construction. When I first got there in late February before the season started, we were not even in the stadium. We were in offices across the street. So going into that situation and having to build it from literally the ground up and from scratch, it's a once in a career type of experience that, quite frankly, I hope I don't have to do again. But,
yeah.
If I have to do it, let it be in the big leagues.
Right.
But that totally different because you're creating a radio broadcast from scratch. I literally was sitting there my first day ordering equipment. We didn't have anything. So, they said, okay, this is our budget, figure it out. The beauty, while difficult in some ways, was that I got to create something totally in my own vision. So it came to, what is our radio broadcast going to sound like? What is our content going to look like? Things we do in Amarillo that other teams don't do, like the pregame show, something we did in Corpus Christi that from the go I wanted to do in Amarillo. I got to say, let's do it. And when I want to do it, and this is how I envision it. Now, the funny about some of that stuff was, of course, you're working with other people who have their own experiences and own vision of what they wanted. They're doing the same thing in their departments. So for a lot of it, what was funny is that I didn't even explain it perfectly. It was more of hey, this is what I want to do. I don't know what the heck it's going to look like on opening night. I'm not sure exactly how we're doing it or what it's going to look like on the video board and on TV, and but just trust me that it will work, and give me a little bit of time, and we will have something really good. And that's exactly what we did on the radio, on TV. And it was an unbelievable season. I mean, I when I took that job, I could have not dreamt of what it would be, from how passionate people were for the team, how popular it was. I mean, we sold out whatever it was, 40 something of our 70 home games. And, when it wasn't sold out, it was pretty close. We won the championship. The way they accepted me and treated me as a broadcaster, as a voice of a team, as a personality, was just beyond my wildest expectations of what it could be. So, the ability to create something from scratch and be there for a first time team, and create that relationship between the fans, the team, myself, the organization, and do it organically, it was really special in a lot of ways.
You've done some cool series about minor league team names. Obviously, the Sod Poodles is a creative one, but I know you've done a few of those. So what are a few of your favorite minor league team names?
The Sod Poodles are up there. The Trash Pandas are a good one. What else is there? Sod Poodles, Trash Pandas, the Montgomery Skits. I like that. The Jumbo Shrimp. There's a lot. Yeah. I mean, they're all over the place. The Baby Cakes when they were in New Orleans. I'm trying to think. In our league, Sod Poodles is really the big weird one. Everybody else is very buttoned up, like the Springfield Cardinals, the Travelers, the Hooks, the Rough Riders, the Missions, the Drillers, the Rockhounds. I mean, we're like the craziest one, although now we have Wichita. They're the Wind Surge, which I think had very similar reception as Sod Poodles originally did in Amarillo, where a lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that I feel like no matter what market it is, every time. And keep in mind also, Wichita and Amarillo, they were brand new. Okay. So it wasn't like we were changing names like some teams have, which I understand. Then, there are going to be people naturally that say, no, I want the old name. Why are we even changing names? Right. Yeah. But you change names because you spice it up, you sell merchandise, all that stuff. When you have a brand new team, it's obviously a little bit different. They got to be something. But I think it's funny because every time you hear one of these crazy names, you have a group of people that says they love it. You have a group of people that says they hate it. And I think what it takes, especially with a new team, and I saw this firsthand with Amarillo, is you just need to get to the season and start playing and experience Ballpark and the atmosphere and everything minor league base and your team really is beyond what the name is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah. They're going to love it. They're going to buy the merchandise. They're going to buy the hats. And guess what? I haven't heard a negative Sod Poodle comment in 18 months. Okay. Since we began the 2019 season.
Right.
People fall in love with it. And what's interesting is that they develop their own relationship to it. Like, we had jerseys. Here's a funny story. We had jerseys before our first season in Amarillo that said Soddies on them. Soddies. Soddies.
Yeah.
I thought this was the stupidest, I don't even know if that's a word, nickname ever. I was like, nobody's going to call them the Soddies. And I was told very early on, you do not call them the Poodles. They are not the Poodles. They are the Sod Poodles. I said, okay. So I'm saying to myself, nobody's going to call them the Soddies. Why do we have jerseys that say Soddies on them? Like, I was saying this in the office. Like, I was like, no, I don't want to call them the Soddies. What is that? What is a Soddy? And Brett, when I tell you that everybody calls them the Soddies, okay, in that first season, you go on Facebook, you go on Twitter, you go in person. Literally everybody calls them the Soddies. So I was wrong. The much smarter people, our GM, our front office, they were right. And guess what? I call them the Soddies now too. And don't think twice about it. So it just shows you, like, you don't know how people are going to act and respond. But that's one of the cool things with a new team is that you get to see all that and see how it develops. So in 25 years when, people are selling them the sod poodles and the soddies, you remember how that started. And
Yeah.
what's funny, like about the Saudis nickname, and again, tangent, rambling here, but what's funny about the Saudis nickname is it really started from the jerseys because the team called them the Saudis. And, in certain cases, you're going to have fans just up and go with it. So, I was wrong. They were right.
That's okay. Now you're used to it now. I want to ask you, so an underreported, I guess, part of, a lot of people don't understand the minor leaguers and what they go through with the bus trips and just, long overnight bus rides. You're in random city all the time, and it's not glamorous at all. But you're part of the staff. You do the same. You live the same life. So what's it been like for you living a minor league lifestyle, not having to play any games, but prepping for shows and all that stuff, and the grueling, season for a broadcaster as well, just like a minor leaguer?
It's a grind. I don't think people really understand, whether it's the minor leagues or the major leagues, how much of a grind it is. It do an enormous appreciation for what major league players and staff and broadcasters do. And I know they're traveling on charter planes, and it's not traveling on the bus. I understand that, but it is a grind to play every day. And it's a grind for me. All I'm doing is talking. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not getting on that same bus, traveling 10 hours from Corpus Christi to Amarillo, getting to town at 8 a.m., have to go start that night. Okay. I'm just talking. So
Right.
for me, it's hard enough. I can only imagine for baseball players, many of whom are going to go on to the leagues. Okay. These are top athletes. Okay. Like really, really fine tuned. And they're, and they're doing that, somehow making it through. So it's a grind. It's a grind for I'm not. Look, that part of it can be tough. I would be lying if I say I don't, I love that part of it. Like I love the everyday nature of it. I love the traveling. To me, the bus is like the best part of the whole thing because it's the one time throughout the season, every few days, every couple of weeks, where you have like some peace and can just sit and listen to some music or work on some different stuff. And there is nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. I love it. And I don't mind sleeping on the bus. I'm 5'8", so I fit, you sleep with the row, whatever. So for me, it's never been a big deal. I don't mind the bus, but it's definitely a grind, to go nonstop for 5-6 months. And remember, these players go to spring training. They are late on from, any that, especially double A, triple A, that's in big league camp. I mean, that's from mid-February to sometimes mid-September. And you think
Yeah.
about that from the major league perspective, for a team that goes to the World Series, mid-February to late October. I mean,
Right.
we just, I know, who doesn't know that baseball's super long, but we don't think about it enough. Like that is a really, really long year, and it's
Yeah.
every day. You're
Right.
playing every day. But again, that's the cool about the minor leagues to me, and being a part of it, is being able to kind of be one of the guys and be around it and be able to sit in a manager's office for 2 hours after a game, just, talking about whatever. Like I've been very lucky. Every manager I've ever had was Philip Warren. I can't believe I just called him Phil Warren. I'll tell you why I called him in a second. Phil Warren at Gateway, okay, with the Grizzlies,
Yeah.
or Ronnie Linares with the Hooks, Omar Lopez with the Hooks, then Philip Wellman. That's why I called him Philip. Philip
Got it.
Wellman with Amarillo. I've been super lucky to have very, very, very good relationships with every manager I've ever worked with. And have the opportunity after a game. Yeah, I sat in Welly's office like every night, and we would just talk about whatever, talk to our coaching staff. The opportunity to kind of one of the guys is cool for me. I'm a nerdy kid who grew up like, a bad high school baseball player, but loves baseball, loves the
Sure.
game. And to have the opportunity to be around it and be around players and coaches and do what I do and be on the bus. I mean, even with every difficulty that comes with the grind of minor league baseball, the grind of a season, I mean, I'm super, super lucky to have that opportunity and to, in a lot of ways, live out a dream. We say it very casually, like people say, man, you're living the dream. I am. Super cool job. That's what I do. I mean, I watch
Yeah.
baseball and I ride a baseball bus
Right.
with all these players, and we get out and go to the gas station and get snacks, and that's what it's really like. And you and I cover the team, and there's certain aspects to that you have to be mindful of, and you're talking about them. And when Johnny Williams, the shortstop, not an actual player, Johnny
Sure.
Williams, maker tomorrow night, I got to say he makes an error, or he makes a baiting blunder. Yeah, I got to say he made a mistake. But you also have to be able to get out at the gas station and go get some snacks and like joke around in the gas station and kind of be one of the guys.
Yeah.
So interesting relationship. And I would say to any broadcaster that's doing it for the first time, want it to be somewhere of that, because I think any good broadcasters, you are, in a way, you're the only non-player coach traveling and with the team that much. You are, on that team in a sense, in a way. But yeah, you've also got to talk about that team every night. And every once in a while, somebody may not like what you have to say, or, a parent somewhere, whether it's right or not, may not like what you have to say. Now,
Sure.
I'm very lucky. Those have been, not for me at all. It happens. So it's a delicate relationship and an interesting relationship in that sense. But again, super fun, and to be able to do, I'm just extremely lucky.
I wanted to ask you about ballpark food. So, you get to go to a lot
Yeah.
of different stadiums, and obviously, the stopping at the gas stations overnight. This, it's just you're living the life of a minor league player. But I'm sure you get to eat a ton of ballpark food. So, who's got the best ballpark food?
If I don't say the Amarillo Sod Poodles, our
The
concession, our concessions manager is be happy. The food in Amarillo is great. I will say this: I don't have a favorite. I've been lucky that every team I worked for has had very unique things, like the unique items in Amarillo. Great, some of the different knots they have, and some of the different items that are very Texas Panhandle based. Awesome. And some of the stands they have, like our sweet tea, things like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. At the Corpus Christi Hooks, they had great food, but the marquee of Whataburger Field was a Whataburger.
Sure.
Okay. So it's the only place in America where you can have a Whataburger in one hand and a beer in the other. Okay, at the same place, and you're watching a baseball game. So that was very unique, having a Whataburger in a baseball stadium. The Gateway Grizzlies independent ball team, excellent food, excellent. Everything was done in-house. Their Philly cheesesteak nachos, they have baseball's best, which is between a Krispy Kreme donut, very popular. It's been on Discovery or Food Network. Great food, like outstanding. So I've been very lucky. Every team I've ever been with has been unique in its own way and had great food in its own way. But it's funny, during the year, every once in a while, I'll try something like weird or different that a team has. I don't do it a lot or as much as you'd think. Number one, because we get food in the press box in some capacity. Okay. And I'm not, I don't really want to go out and spend money in the ballpark when I have something there.
Sure.
The other thing is I'm not, I swear, if I eat something like super, super heavy before a game, I will feel it during the game. You'll be tired. You will sound not great. Maybe I'm crazy only hear
it's
it.
Probably
but
true.
If I have a huge meal, if I have like chocolate or something, I feel gross the entire game. So I try to save, if I'm going to pig out, I try to save that for after the game. Like pregame, I want to just be light, just have whatever's in the press box, not go too hard on any food. I save that for postgame. Like I'm notorious for like hammering like a plate of cookies from the sweet level that was left over postgame. Okay. And I'll have like 7 cookies. Okay.
Last question for you. As far as your kind of ultimate dream as a broadcaster, and I think I saw in one interview you said maybe Clyde Frazier for a Knicks game, or in
Mhm.
Major League Baseball, or for whatever it is. So what are maybe a couple things that you're aspiring to do in your career?
The dream for me, no doubt, as simple as I can put it, even though it's a very weird business in that sense, that like if you got the right thing, you'd go, no matter really where or what it is. My dream is to work in the major leagues, call baseball at that level. I would also love to continue working on the TV side in college sports or pro basketball, pro football, whatever it might be. I would love to continue doing both. I love doing baseball. It's my first love. We've talked a lot about baseball. Some people about it. You can kind of see that split about. Um, that's definitely like number one. Working at the major league level, but I would really like to continue everything else. And when I think about broadcasters that do a lot of different things, like, I'm very lucky also to have a number of them as mentors and friends. So like Brian Ann, right, is a friend and is a great guy. I look at him and I say, that would be really cool to be something like him, do the Brewers, be the voice of a major league team, but also do all this awesome stuff as far as the NBA and the NCAA and golf and all the different things he does for Turner. Like, to me, I look at that and I'm like, that would be really, really cool. The hard part is that you just don't know, what that blueprint is there. You don't know where those opportunities come. Again, I'm still at the point where if somebody said to me the best situation to move your career forward is to go to Idaho, I would look at it and say, okay, explain that to me.
Yeah.
But if it was the right thing, I'm going to Idaho.
Right.
Okay. And there's nothing against Idaho. Okay.
Sure.
I'm just using random state I've never been to.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going. So, good luck, Sam, dating anybody like ever.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that's kind of still my mode of thinking. So that's, you can say I have a dream job. I have an ideal thing I want to do, and it's great to have those goals. But I think this industry is one where it's hard to map it out, even if you have those goals, and you have to just be open to the different possibilities and different things, even if it's not exactly what you envisioned, even if it's not exactly on your timeline. Which, by the way, isn't too different than, I guess, like any business or anything you want to do, right? You can't map out life.
Right.
But again, very rambling answer. But my dream, if I had to say, like 100%, work in the majors, continue to do everything on the TV, and hopefully I can get there.
I'm with you, man. Hopefully, I hoping for you. So that'd be great if you could do that stuff. But
Yeah.
for now, you're going to Amarillo this year.
Yes.
So where can everybody follow you on social media and find you online, everything, and follow your journey?
So Twitter, Instagram, SammyLev. TikTok, which is my newest endeavor, is Sammy Levitt. So Sammy Lev with the ITT at the end. I do Facebook a little, but not really.
Yeah.
So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Those are my go-tos. TikTok is like now my go-to. I'm like very focused on
It's
TikTok.
blowing up, man. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening there.
I still got a way to go. But yeah, it is fun. It's, I'm always, and I say this a lot, any younger broadcasters out there listening, I'm always happy to chat. I've had a lot of DMs like off TikTok. I haven't got to all of them yet.
Yeah.
And, that I can have like a Zoom with everybody. But I'm happy to offer, at the very least, a message of advice or encouragement. And, a lot of people to even get to where I am have helped me. So I want to pay that back and try to help as many people as I can, whether it's broadcast stuff or, if you have a relationship question, I can give you my best shot, but I'm not very good at that stuff occasionally. So,
Nice. Well, Sam, you've been great, man. Thank you very much. It's been awesome having you on. So thank you for your time, and look forward to following you this year.
Yeah, no problem, Brett. Keep up the great work, and thanks for having me.
My thanks to Sam Levitt. He's at Sammy Lev. I appreciate you guys listening today. Hope you really enjoyed that episode, kind of behind the scenes of what it's like to be a broadcaster. So pretty cool to hear that stuff. And he's called a lot of games in his career in multiple sports. So happy to have him on. My thanks again to Sam Levitt. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. You can check me out there. If you want to watch the interviews, you can watch them on YouTube at our YouTube channel. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. Please subscribe and hit the bell notification every time so we can notify you of it when we drop episodes, which is usually on Thursdays. If you'd like to listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please stop and scroll down right now. If you could, hit the 5-star rating. We'd love it so we could get some more exposure for the show. We really appreciate that. And subscribe there as well. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Pandora. We're on Google Play. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us at Too Tall Sports Podcast. If you'd like to email the show, tootallsportspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you soon for another great episode. See ya.